Hey, what's going on, everybody? Nigeria alongside Zero today, and we have a very, very special interview. As you know, it is Fantastic Fest 2021, and there's been a film that the two of us have had our eyes on, and that brings us to this ultimate, really amazing opportunity to talk to the directors and writers and star of the new film that, quite frankly, gave me a lot of mixed feelings, and I'm glad we're going to be able to clear some of this up. That film is Alone with You. That review should be available for you to check out very soon, but ultimately, you want to keep your eyes out for when this film is released, because I'm pretty sure you're going to be coming back to this interview saying, I get it now. So, but Emily and Justin, how you two doing today?
Very good.
So
very
good. Thank you for having us on.
Awesome. So, as I know, you're in Austin. You're live from Fantastic Fest. How's it been so far? How's the taking in of your world premiere of your new film?
It's amazing. It's so cool. I mean,
I feel like we're still gonna wake up from this. It's unbelievable. Like Scott Derrickson's here, like Robert Cargill, like the Wu-Tang Clan, like was here last night, like hanging out, like. It's been, I just can't believe we're here with our first feature film. So yeah, we're pretty on cloud nine right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're fans first. So being able to just be here and like see all the great other filmmakers, the great other films that are here. It's an honor to be counted among them. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Awesome. Congratulations. And you absolutely deserve to be in that audience.
Thank you so much.
On that note, let's get into the film. So first things first, I would just like to say, as a New Yorker myself, I live in Manhattan.
All right.
I related pretty hard to these strong feelings of, claustrophobia and isolation, with Alone with You being one of those single location bangers, which are really hard to do, by the way. And I wasn't expecting that when I went in. I was thinking more of a figurative alone with myself kind of thing, but it was nice to see that I got, the best of both worlds, with the figurative meaning and literally alone in your apartment, which I found myself in the same predicament for months at a time. So I was just wondering, how much influence did the pandemic, the quarantine, have on this script, and what it was like filming single location banger, as I like to call them? Did it pose any difficulties for filming? Did it kind of sway filming at all? Because I know this was a kind of a common theme for a lot of us during this time.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing for us, the most important thing is we wanted to make a film that was not about the pandemic. It was not about quarantine, but we wanted to kind of take all those feelings. I think all of us had that kind of loss of self, that separation, that real, like, being closed off from the rest of the world. And we wanted to keep those feelings in there and bottle that up for the film. It's definitely, I think, so many of us, whether we know it or not, kind of define ourselves by the people we surround ourselves with, the places we tend to go, the things we do as people. Especially, I mean, New Yorkers, we're never in our apartments. Like, the whole point is to be out in the city. And so when that is immediately taken from you, when you are forced to just be alone, who are you then, and what does that feel like, that loss of self? And that's what we really wanted to explore, more so than a quarantine, than a pandemic. That's what attracted us.
Yeah, we wanted to create a movie that would be evergreen. COVID films, hopefully, after a while, will seem dated. That would be great. So we wanted to create a film during this time that can last on the shelf a bit longer than this time frame. Now, talking about like actually creating this story did not exist before the pandemic. I had just moved in with Justin. We're together in life as well as film. And I had just moved in with him and the pandemic started. And so this idea came from a short film idea that he had. We shot 2 short films at the beginning of the pandemic and thought, why not try for a feature? which is a lot easier said than done. But we took an idea that Justin had changed the main character to a female, and we were off.
Well, it's much more than, I mean, it was originally based on a short film that I had written about a year prior. But everything about that film, the character, the story, like everything else outside of the central idea of like, what if you were locked in your own place? Like everything else was ours, was something we created together outside of that short film, for sure.
And it's great to develop because we had the actor there to read the lines the entire time. So
that's true. Yes.
What you get for, I mean, co-directing and co-writing, we love doing that together. We work really well together. We're very different people, but we come together in a kind of non-emotional, logic, story-based way that is just so, we're just so excited to work together. But it was great just to be able to, he would write something and he'd be like, does this work? And I'd be like, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
And yeah, so long answer, but.
No, great, thank you.
That's very interesting. You say you come together as a non-emotional based aspect, and then you create a film filled with a lot of emotion. And it's interesting because your performance as Charlie is fantastic, and it's eerily relatable. I was telling Zero, I was just like, the big question today is going to be about what was figurative and what was actually literal. But we do know a lot of this is premised about the idea and the fact of relationship, expectations of relationships, but ultimately breakups, which a lot of us, about 99% of us at one point of our life, have had some form of a breakup. So with this character, how much of your own personal experiences, whether your own or around you, was poured into this to really drive out such an emotional, authentic character?
Well,
that's a good question.
I think first, when we were talking character, I mean, I think it's relatively universal. At least I hope it is. Like, I think anytime we get into a very heavy relationship, or anytime we've been so involved with somebody, you really do give a part of yourself away to that, and you almost, it's hard to reclaim that after that relationship is ended. It's hard to turn back and be like, my God, now I have to be a whole person alone again. And I think that was a big part of Charlie, is really this person that was not entirely whole, and how do we explore her dealing with that in this then extreme situation. But I think a lot of it, a lot of our attraction to most of our characters is our characters are never fully good. They're never fully bad. They're to us, it's just people are people. You wake up one day and you could be a real bastard, and the next day you're like the kindest person out there. And I think that's what makes us all interesting. And that's where we want to find our characters usually is they are
in those gray areas.
Yeah.
I think, and to what Justin said, from the creation of Charlie to actually embodying her, the process of her, to your question, what did I, how much of me was kind of in there? I think too much for comfort in a way. I truly think that, in the past, luckily I'm with this gorgeous human being right here, but, in the past, like I would change constantly. I'm from the South, so I was raised to be very nice and very polite and, never kind of speak up or say anything. And I often just kind of bent to what did they want me to be? How should I sit? How should I dress? How should I? And in doing that, you give away even your idea of who you are. So when that breaks, your ego shatters in a way, and you have to kind of reclaim and refigure out, like, who the hell am I? So a lot of Charlie, I can't judge the characters I play because I have to be them. So my empathy for that struggle goes very deep. And I think that was my way into Charlie, into this character that we created.
Well, and
was
the
to
both
have
of
that
us, I mean,
sympathy.
as the writers, like it's, we both have to love our characters. Because these are, these are people to us as we move through them, and they really are. It's funny is, I know that being that Charlie's a woman and so many women will see themselves in that character. Charlie is very, very much a piece of my heart as well. Like I don't know many people that I don't think have felt a little shattered after something, a big breakup, or not even just a breakup, but a relationship has ended. It's just such a universal thing, I think, for all of us, that was
100%. And I hope that people, I mean, you've seen the film, so you kind of know what happens, maybe. But I think the the trick of this film is, if it is a single location, and you are with mostly one character, you have to connect that character to the audience, otherwise the film doesn't work. So yeah.
I do want to also say, Justin, also as a male, absolutely relate to this character Charlie, because it's the whole idea of, and something you said too, Emily, which really touched me, is that it's the idea of when you're in situations, relationships, whatever it may be, it's that outside influence telling you what you should do, how you should act, hiding a part of you in that person for the comfort of somebody else, to the point that you eventually break and you say, no more. This is what it is, and this is what I'm going to embrace. And that is essentially you telling half the movie right here. And what's interesting is that, we know this is a genre festival, so we know there is going to be a lot of horror, and horror could come in so many different ways. I don't think there's anything more scary than a story that is so relatable that you actually see yourself in it, way beyond slashers and all the other very conventional ones of that's a horror film. Nothing like a film that you're just like, yeah, I've been there, when your friend call you and they're saying, I told you shouldn't have been with that person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're just like, wow.
Nothing.
That's awesome to hear.
There's nothing more terrifying than our own insecurities, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody that can take you apart much like you can. So it's.
And the people who are closest to you, the people that you love, are the ones who hurt you the most.
Yeah.
And in turn, you hurt yourself because of some of those relationships, because you're searching for something. You're desperate to, in a way, not be alone. And when you are alone, that's when the demons come out.
Yeah. Go for Zero.
Ooh, that's that real life scary. Najir and I talk about like the real life horror. It's one thing to watch a movie about alien abduction and say like, oh, that's really terrifying. That would really suck if aliens were to come. But this, I could wake up tomorrow and this could be my reality, and that would be absolutely traumatizing for anyone that has 2 legs and 2 arms and walks on this earth. Really, I think I can say that confidently. But since we're talking about this character, Charlie, I just want to ask maybe a little bit of a personal question, but how did you prepare for this? Because this is real life scary, and you're in one location, and it's a very claustrophobic script. You really have to break yourself off of the rails. In that third act, it was a really phenomenal performance. And I know you're not a stranger to horror, but I would someday like to see you as a final girl, because your character has like that really strong fight, and it seems really hard. So, is there any way that you prepared yourself to put yourself in that shoes that could very well be plausible?
I have to say, before she even talks about performance, I don't think people realize that the amazing emotional levels that she has gone through. She had to stop like that, come behind the camera with me, talk through blocking, work through our actual setup as a director, as a co-director. And then she had to get back in front of that camera and go. And that not a day went by that I was not like, how in the hell does this happen? It's a superpower, for real.
I say so. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Guys, thank you. Yeah, I mean that was, and honestly, what he's saying. Thank you so much for saying that. Honestly, that helped in a weird way. That kind of breaking from pure emotion, and we shot mostly chronological as much as we could, just for the emotional journey to properly map that out. But by the end, we shot this for about 45 days, almost straight, in this apartment, and we had to move slowly because it was just the two of us. And so by the end, I was so used to being our AD, coming up with our schedule. We had storyboarded, we had come up with the frames, we knew the day. I would help hang lights, then I would go into hair and makeup, doing my own hair and makeup while he continued setting up. And I would put on love songs, and I would put on my playlist for Charlie, which is still very dear to me. Like, it still kind of brings out those manufactured memories, combinations of imagination and experience. And then by the time we got to the third act, I was so used to just like being in this place of just utter desperation, and then cut, and then just being like, okay, did we get it? And that and like that, but that kind of bipolar, schizophrenic process actually ended up kind of helping me, because I never knew which way was up. The news was coming in, COVID was getting worse. Everybody was just like, what are we doing? I honestly, I feel like we, in a way, avoided the pandemic for a little while because the shoot schedule was so insane. And honestly, that in itself ended up helping the performance. I lost weight, he lost weight. We were not like the healthiest people. We lived off frozen food and Kind bars. But in a way that helped me get there emotionally, because there was just nothing left. I had no energy to hold back.
It was like a forced method almost.
I don't recommend it as a process necessarily, but and thank you for saying that about the final girl. I love a good final girl.
Yes, we all do.
Yeah,
you would make a killer one, because man, I was really fighting for your character, and I felt bad, but then there's also this transparency of this character is an everyday person and they're not a perfect person, but just the desperation of it all could really make you forget about how flawed regular people are. And, you just see a person who's really desperate and is in a really crazy situation right now and has pulled all the strings. And it's like, what now?
Yeah.
What amazing performance. So thank you. That was a great answer. Not the answer I was expecting, but a great answer nonetheless. Thank you.
Oh,
I want you to ask Zero. I want you to ask your next question first, because I want to my final question. I want to break to the point that give fair warning, because there's no way we talk to you all without happen to discuss a very specific part of this film, which is spoilers. So I want to make sure that we can get a nice little warning for any folks watching. So Zero, you follow with your next question.
All right, let's get it. Here we go to the nitty-gritty that we've been talking about, that we all want to know, is about the conclusion, the finale, the third act. It was a very special part of psychological horror. It will always be the finale. Because the great thing about this subgenre is what comes afterwards, and depending on who your viewer is, you could get a plethora of meaning from that film. And so I just want to know, at what point in the screenwriting process did you imagine this finale? Was it kind of the situation first? Or I know a lot of times in psychological horror, the ending comes first and then you build the rest of the movie to fit that ending. But here, you can't tell, really. I think that the ending is almost just as traumatizing as the height of the craziness in the film. And how ambiguous did you imagine the ending to be? I think that it was all pretty straightforward up until that ambiguous ending. Did you envision it that way? I know now that you went shooting these things chronologically, so I'm just curious as to how that finale came out of your brains.
Well, I mean, when it came to writing, when we write together, we tend to really work out the story before we get into the script. Like there's literally times where we are acting out scenes on a floor, and I'm like, and then he goes like this, and and we work through all that stuff. It's almost kind of a workshop process before we go into writing, and then when
we look insane, but we're having time.
Because we write as such a singular voice, and we do write separately, we have to know where the other one is going at all times. So our films are generally we know where we're headed, so that we can both block these things out and come together. But it was always very intentional that every piece of that film is a scavenger hunt towards a truth. And we wanted it to be, I'm thrilled by a film that I've watched 30 times. And on the 31st time, I was like, I've never noticed that.
Yes.
So that is something we really wanted to bring into this film. We thought it was such an opportunity, especially psychologically for our character. It very much made sense to hide things from her and ultimately from the audience.
Very much so. And by hiding things from her, the question is, honestly, I hope people watch this film, and I think Charlie is relatable enough, and I'm so glad to hear that you guys think that as well. But just because we may have empathy with her as an audience, that doesn't mean we necessarily can trust everything she's telling us and everything she's showing us, because the film is very much from her perspective. And so I think hiding things from Charlie may actually mean that Charlie is hiding things from us.
Yes.
And I honestly think there's still portions of the film that we take in two terribly different directions. Like our own interpretation of parts of this film don't entirely line up. So, which is kind of the point. I think it really is. It's a character that is meant to be. It's really meant to be interpreted. It's meant to be a gift to the audience to walk away and really kind of be able to be a part of that story.
And I will say, as a writer and as a director, co-writer and co-director, I think that ambiguity, I love that in film. But I will say, as an actor, I had to know exactly what was going on in my own reality. And so my idea of what happens as a director and as a writer did finally come together in the performance of it. It finally converged. But for most of the film, as a director and writer, I had to understand something completely different than what Charlie, the character, was understanding, which was a complicated
again,
balance.
that duality that has to be played as the director actor. I mean, the actor
hiding things from myself, literally.
Well, and the actor we can't see that she knows more than the character, and that's...
No, I can't know more than the character because I am the character.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
So it's a fun little balance, but it's definitely, I mean, the question of her voice versus reality, that was always there. That was always the intention to really, we wanted to leave. I love a film that leaves questions, that creates a dialogue that really makes you enter into it. However, I never want to make a film that just does something to mess with
you. To be weird and to be like, well, you don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can get this film.
Yeah.
We just don't. I think we're trying to be very careful to allow people to have their own experiences.
Yeah, know that everything in this film is fully intentional. There were
100% intentional, all of it.
Yeah, there were no happy accidents.
Right.
There's no happy anything.
Okay. Oh, there's a lot to take into what you just said. So I truly apologize if I'm about to, my question makes any of that redundant, because the more you start speaking, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. Or like, oh wait, maybe I don't get it. So I love that. I mean, the idea of watching a psychological thriller horror is you want to create commentary, and there is fantastic directors and writers. That's like a new word, right? You add it together. But there are folks that do that. I know a particular really known director who does the whole I did something weird, you don't get it, so I'm gonna come out and do interviews about it and tell everybody that they're wrong about it. It's like no. That's not what we as fans, we don't want to be right. We want to be able to talk about it with our theories and be like, oh, you got that from that. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So I love that hearing from you all saying that solidifies everything that we believe as consumers of film. That's the goal here, because that makes us feel good, and that also means that we also want to continue to be fans of your work, because we know at any given time you may open up a new chapter for us to talk about here. So I love that. And Justin, again, I love the idea of going back, watching something, say, oh wow, I missed that. I can't believe I missed that.
I mean, I love art that involves its audience. I mean, we're a community. Like, as genre fans, we're a community, and I love to let little pieces out to those fans and be like, now it's yours. Now go take it,
Yeah. Okay. So folks, again, this film is Alone with You. Check it out, and definitely let us know in the comments your thoughts and what did you derive from this film. I'm saying this just because I'm now going to let you all know that my question may either be considered a spoiler or it may derive a spoiler answer here. So this because I have got to ask this question, and I never get personal in interviews or reviews or anything, but I do have to bring something up to kind of set the table here. Mm-hmm. The one thing about breakups is that it sucks. Nobody wins. And that's where you all said that there's always multiple sides of the story. Your story, their story, and then the truth, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
But also, there's been a lot of people in all different forms of media expressing what breakups mean to them. Jordan Sparks easily comes to my mind with her song, How Do You Breathe With No Air? Because that's how she felt when she was alone. And I told Zero, I remember I had a breakup and I felt like I was drowning. One of my biggest fears, but also it's alluded to like one of the worst heartbreaks,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was interesting in this film that Charlie, and I could not figure this out, and I still don't know. And Justin threw me a wild curveball a minute ago, because it essentially makes it seem like that everything you see in the film happened. But it's interesting because she's in her apartment, which is everyone's sanctuary, your safe space, until it's not. Until it's not. And most time we're in places we're not comfortable with. We either leave it, or, as all of us adults enjoy, vacations. Most people love to go to vacation spots, our beaches, happy places. How did Charlie leave what was once considered her happy place? And every single time she's out of that place, she's on a beach. What is the message that is being told here? I cannot connect this one for the life of me, of how she felt prisoner in mind, body, confinements of the wall. And honestly, from everything that's happening, she's trying to escape this place. But every single time that we get to see her outside of this element, it ends up being beachy.
Well,
what is happening here?
Totally. I'm so glad you asked. That's awesome. You're so right. Beaches. Well, and in the beginning of the film, the first shots are comforting. That is honestly when I'm an actor, and Elizabeth Moss does this as well in The Handmaid's Tale. She does for all of her characters. She gets a piece of graph paper and she literally maps out her emotional journey. She's a great actor, so I was like, I'm gonna try that. So honestly, on my graph paper, just to fully be transparent, that's the highest Charlie is. That's the happiest moment at the beginning of the film when she's with Simone. Yeah. So you're exactly right, that beachy beauty, and the way Justin shot it is so romantic and so lovely and so loving. That memory is what Charlie holds. And so, yeah, what is that? How did that turn so wrong? And in the end, we do return there, but it's a very different experience.
Yes.
And so in a way,
I think there's
Yeah, you
a
take it.
thing about remember that and I guess spoilers, but
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Please.
We are with Charlie. We are experiencing the things in her head, essentially, and the way she remembers things.
Yeah.
And Charlie's memories are not serving her very well right now. They're a little
She's an unreliable narrator.
They're a little confused. So she has this wonderful place that she, by nature, her mind wants to go back to. But due to the fact that her mind is playing tricks on her, that wonderful place tends to be moving away from her in ways, and is being kind of almost muddied by a very harsh reality, is trying to pull her out of this happy place.
The beach is trying to pull her back from her comfort place of her apartment. That's my understanding of it. Now but we don't want to limit the audience's experience of it.
Right.
So I think what you said is exactly right. Your apartment is your comfort. And so when you're experiencing something really traumatic, you do want to go to a comforting place. And so, yeah.
But it's also funny because if you were to take that story very literally, the beach is both the most wonderful memory she has, and also is one of the most horrific things she's experienced. So it's kind of fighting in her head what place that beach has for her, that we liked playing with throughout the story.
Does that answer?
And I think that's about as literal as I'd like to get with that. I love when people want to take that to their own place.
Yeah.
I got a proposition here. You let us know when you're in New York. We'll grab some tea and we'll lay this out some more.
You got it.
We'll be back soon. We're in Brooklyn, so
yeah.
Awesome. And by the way, Justin, I mean, that's really messed up how you brought this film in. It is actually really beautifully shot. I paused the film because I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm watching a horror film. I am watching a horror film or some sorts of, because of the festival. I'm like, oh yeah, I know things about to get crazy now. You trying to soften me up because you know it's coming. So
this is too nice. It is way too nice right now. It's beautiful.
And that's his skill, that we wanted to seduce you into beautiful images, which Justin, he's an insane cinematographer. Like this guy, it is the most beautiful film, and he shot it with no one, with like me, like trying to not break his equipment, honestly. Like he is such a stunning eye and a hand of just, he breathed with me, he danced with me, and by the time we like got to those horror places, like we knew we were going there, but just embracing the beauty in the moments, the calm before the storm, I think is truly where you see his true artistry in this film.
And thank you so much. I think, again, with, like I said, I repeat, nothing is a mistake. It's all so intentional. And when it comes to the visual language of this film, I had to understand I was Charlie's eyes through these moments.
Yeah.
So when she feels loved, when she feels warm, we need to see that. We need to understand that visually for her. And when she starts changing, the visuals change, the light changes, everything in this film has to be filtered through Charlie. So so that's the visuals are the same. It's we're sweet when she feels love, and we're dark when she's afraid.
Yeah. So. And I will add one other aspect to this too. Whoever did this, I'm about to say cinematography, whoever did the score also was right there with you. It's like his hand was right on your shoulder and you all posted everything all together.
The amazing Sean Duffy. Well, the
Phil
score
Mossman and
was
the
Phil
score.
Mossman. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the sound design was Sean Duffy, and
Yes.
the two of them
My God.
together, that dance was just unbelievable.
Well, and truly, that's when we got a crew, because I don't think people truly understand. We did not have a crew on set. It was the two of us.
Yeah.
It was this dance and this desperate attempt to make a feature during this time. And once we had that, we finally got crew. Justin edited half of the film and then handed it to a wonderful editor, Ward Crockett. And then when the score and the sound design started coming in, I mean, that's half of a horror film. That's you know, when you get the jump scares and the rising panic that you're just like, oh God, that sound's been there the whole time and I didn't realize. That's when we really got to play. Like once we had a cut, we dove in. And Sean Duffy, he's just so brilliant. He does a lot of Mickey Keating's films, Darling, and I never want to work with anyone else, honestly. We just told him what our thoughts, and he would go away for like a week and deliver something. Yeah, and we would just be like white knuckling, like, oh yes.
We got to talk in more than we need a buzz here, we need a hum there. We got to tell him about the real kind of themes, the feelings we needed, what, you know,
emotional language,
we really,
not technical.
Exactly. We spoke in an emotional language that he then, as an artist, we want our collaborators to be able to put themselves in the film. And then we tailor and we work, you know, we work back, we work things around, and he just came with his own voice, his own interpretation of the film, and that with some very little moving around was just beautiful. And the score by Phil Mossman was so kind for our film, because I mean, this is Phil Mossman's like part of LCD sound system. Like this guy is,
he doesn't need to do a film of this size.
Musician, and he really just loved the work and he loved the film, and you can tell it in his score. It's so he really just created such beautiful work.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Zero, any final questions on your half?
I have all my questions answered and more. Thank you for both of you for allowing us to speak to you today. And I know Najir and I are waiting for the next one like this with our eyes peeled. And maybe consider that final girl thing that we talked about earlier.
We definitely have. And I will say we do have our next project lining up. Same producers, Andrew Corkin and Theo James, who are incredible producers, and we're so lucky to work with them. So they're empowering us to make the next one, and we're waiting for some final things to fall into place. I will be in the film, but I may not be the main character. I'm excited to have a bit more of a crew to work with and sit properly in Video Village and experience that. But I think you may get the final girl you're looking for in our next film.
Yeah.
Okay.
There.
I'm just saying, if you need extra crew members to just, you know, deliver coffee or something, we're here, you know.
I can get coffee.
We're fans of the work. We will definitely love to just be able to see what's going on, you know.
Oh my God, anytime, guys. Yeah.
That's awesome. But Emily and Justin, again, congratulations on your world premiere of your first feature-length film at Fantastic Fest 2021. This is a huge deal, so this is absolutely a great honor. Folks, you have got to check this film out along with you. Keep your eyes peeled for distribution at times, and then also if you're at the festival, this is one you totally want to check out. I believe that you can rent films from Fantastic Fest digitally as well too. So if you're not in the Austin area where the film is happening live, then you can do your part in supporting this film by purchasing it digitally, giving them their flowers now for sure. And we want to know, us and them can I'm sure want to know, what is your take on this film? It's definitely going to derive a lot of different answers here and speculations, and I can't wait to see what folks got to say about it. But
Yes, same.
You all knocked this one out, and consider us fans, and we'll have our eyes glued for the next project.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in for this interview. Stick around for more interviews, reviews, especially coming out of Fantastic Fest this year very soon. So thank you so much for tuning in for this one. We'll see you around very soon, folks.